Welcome to the Limitless Potential podcast, where together we will dive into the personal, business, and career-rich tips, techniques, stories, and experiences of some incredibly successful and inspirational people, each with their own perspectives and journeys, and each with golden nuggets of wisdom which might just change your life. I'm Tracy Stone, and I'm a master trainer in a number of career supercharging techniques, a transformational coach, international best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and a woman discovering and evolving my very own limitless potential day by day.
I went to yoga and honestly, you're going to start from the stage.
Celebrate yourself.
Spiritual things are very, very second and her.
And so once a week, each of you take.
Now I love that message. I see this happening many times again.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Limitless Potential. I'm delighted to welcome Martina Kwan, champion race car driver and executive alpha women's coach, who joins us today from beautiful California. Martina is a 3 times champion race car driver, a 2 times international best-selling author, Telly and Emmy award winner, and the mom of 2 very beautiful daughters. 7 years ago, though, against all odds at the age of 50, Martina decided to change her life completely. She said enough is enough with her failing marriage and decided to become a race car driver in the male-dominated field of racing. She is now the CEO of DK Racing School and Daring to Be Different Coaching. Martina has inspired and empowered thousands of women to believe that anything is possible at any age, including finding your true love later in life. She met and has been with the love of her life, Dwain, for 5.5 years and has never been happier. Aside from running her racing schools and extreme confidence mastermind women's retreats, Martina is a champion mindset and relationship coach who helps alpha women discover the surefire way to become an alpha female magnet and attract the alpha man they have always yearned for, going from aloneness to oneness. And she's here with us today to talk about her journey and how she taps into her very own and very special limitless potential. Welcome, Martina. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Tracy. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. And I know you have such an interesting story to tell. I'm so looking forward to unfolding this beautiful conversation. So let's crack on, Martina. If you would start off by telling us a little bit about you growing up. Where were you? What was it like? Tell us what little Martina was like.
Okay, so again, thanks for having me. So I'm Martina Kwan, and I was born in Hong Kong, and my mom was German and my father was Chinese. So we actually lived a pretty interesting life. We lived in Hong Kong for 8 years, and it was a pretty international city. It was a British crown colony, and it was wonderful growing up there and going out on the junks and boats, into the South China Sea and swimming. I competitively swam in at the country clubs, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And then my parents got divorced, and my mom remarried a Lebanese man. And so at 8, we moved to Beirut, Lebanon. And Beirut was known as the Paris of the Middle East, and it was a beautiful country set right in the Mediterranean Sea, and it was a very international metropolitan city. A few months later, the Civil War started. So it was actually, I'll go over the details of living through war, but it was actually a great place to live despite the war. Beach clubs, you could go skiing. 1 hour in, there were mountains, and we had our Lebanese relatives there. So my cousins lived down the street, and we would roller skate. We really learned to roller skate very well, and we would go down to their place. My Lebanese grandma lived a little further down. So it was really actually a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful city before the war started. And so I define my childhood as, we grew up in Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. And after the war, we moved to Germany, where my mom's from. And it was wonderful, being in Germany as well. Hamburg is known as the Green City. So there are a lot of parks and very different from being in Lebanon. And I love to horseback ride. So I started my passion of horses back in Germany. And then we kept moving around to Bahrain back in the Middle East, and then Amsterdam, Germany. I started my college in Switzerland in a ski resort called Les Uns, the American College of Switzerland, before moving to the United States. So I would say I'm really thankful for having a very interesting childhood, although it was challenging because, I always envied the children who were in one place all of their life, because it is hard to move to different cities and then start afresh and make new friends. But I had my older sister, Veronica, who's only 2 years apart. So we were sort of partners in crime as we grew up from childhood. And then I have my younger sister, Gina, as well. But yeah, Veronica and we kind of shared the same friends. And I'm so grateful for having a sister growing up, especially having moved so much.
I'm sure that must have been so important, some continuity for you when you don't have continuity. I can understand that on a smaller level, where I grew up in the north of Ireland, which was actually going through what felt like a never-ending internal war in Ireland. And we moved when I was young to the south of Ireland, which was entirely different. And then we moved a few years later to another part, and you keep losing your groups of friends as you go along. We didn't have the internet. It was a very different era. And I had my sister, whose name is also Gina.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So, we're very close as a result of that. So, that's a lot for a young girl, for you to have had all of those moves, and it enriches you and it makes you strong, but it's also a lot to deal with. Okay, so what happened next? What came next for you?
As a child, you mean? Or yeah, so I would say some of the biggest challenges, in my life was, number one, being born half Chinese and half German. So for actually 3 decades of my life, I wasn't sure where I belonged. I didn't look Chinese enough for Chinese people to consider me being a Chinese person, or German enough to be considered German. So I kind of struggled internally. Externally, I've always been this strong person, but internally, it was kind of a question of my identity that I had till I actually moved to Connecticut and was pregnant for the first time and had my first child. And then I realized that home is where the heart is. So, but, growing up sort of not knowing is kind of a question mark that you have in your life. And the second really challenging thing as a child was, living through the war. So like I said, it was actually really great and fun during the day. So we would roller skate to our cousins. We would walk to the American University of Beirut. We lived on Bliss Street, and there was this monkey on the way that we would visit and say hi to. And then we would climb these great big cypress trees on the AUB campus and go to the beach clubs. But when day turned to night, it became really frightening. And every night, so our neighborhood within 1.5 miles became the stronghold of the civil war between the Christians and the Muslims. And so every night we would hear machine gun fire, like very quietly in the background, getting louder and louder as it got closer to our apartment. So that was really frightening. And I remember every night getting out of my bed and climbing into my older sister Veronica's bed because I was so afraid. And so then the militia would come into our neighborhood, and off the back of pickup trucks fire rockets and bombs, and we would hear the explosions. But the sound that I'll always remember is it's almost like the fireworks going off and not knowing where the bomb was going to go off. So a lot of those 2 years was being frightened whether we were going to be the next ones to die. And so every night the sirens would go off. My sister and I would go with our family. All the neighbors would come down to our ground floor apartment, and we would sit huddled. It was sort of like our bomb shelter in the corridor of the ground floor. But luckily everything turned out fine. We were able to leave as refugees a couple of years later through gun checkpoints and moved to Germany, and with nothing but our suitcases on our backs. And I have to say, our German family and friends were amazing. So we thought at some point we could go back, but it really was, we were leaving Beirut forever. And so they helped us with carpets and clothing and pots and pans and anything that you need to get started in a new place and a new city. And so I'm really, really thankful for everyone taking us under their wing. But what I wanted to say about growing up in war is during the day, I think this is a technique that's really valuable for anyone, no matter what situation you're going through. If you're a child, if you're a teenager and your parents are fighting, what I would recommend is what I did, is daydream. And so I would get up every morning after a night of being frightened, and I would have my Barbie dolls and the horses and the horse stables and the Ken and the Barbies. And I would imagine riding into the forest, into this beautiful, quiet, peaceful forest. And lo and behold, a couple of years later in Germany, I actually started horseback riding, and I actually found myself in that peaceful forest. So it's also, known as the power of visualization, but daydreaming and getting yourself out of your current situation is so helpful. If your parents are fighting or whatever it is, drown that out, start daydreaming about good things. And it really helps you cope with, the unpleasantries of today and think about your future. And so that being in Germany and realizing that, I dreamed it and now I'm living it, really helped me throughout my life to visualize becoming anything I wanted to be. Visualizing the Emmy Awards, the Telly Awards, the 3 racing championships, having children, whatever it is, you can visualize it starting in your head and dreaming big. So dream big, because things are possible if you believe in yourself.
You're so right. I absolutely love that attitude, Martina. I really do love it. And so many people will say, but I'm going through this terrible time and you don't understand. I can't just think of something nice. You can if you say you can. If you say you can't, you can't.
Right.
Whether
Exactly.
you can and whether you believe you can't, you're right.
Exactly. I'm a huge believer in that. There's a possibility if you wake up in the morning and you have this past that you either want to, I'm sorry, but the reality is wallow in, or do you want to change the reality? Do you want to change the narrative and say, you know what? No, I'm going to focus on the positive. It is possible. The mind is so powerful. It's what we tell it. If you say, I can't, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we have to say, use the positive narratives. I can, I absolutely can, with conviction, with certainty, and it will happen.
You're so right. And it's no wonder, and not that I want to short circuit any of your beautiful journey, but it's no wonder that you end up the way you do at this stage of your life, but we'll get there. So let's come back to that. You're in Germany. You finally find yourself on horseback in that beautiful glade, and you're living a better life in Germany. I'm sure you missed Beirut, because I do believe in so many people that it's such a beautiful, beautiful place. But reality hits in. So what happened next for you? What came next?
So Germany was, again, wonderful. And I really defined my dreams there. So we lived there from 10 to 12. And I really found myself loving going to the riding stable. And I would walk to the train, take 2 different trains, get off in Pottenbutter, get on the bus, and then walk another 20 minutes to the riding stable. I was so passionate about loving being on horse farms and being in the countryside. It's something that has been in my heart ever since. And so, we moved around, we moved to different places. But the point of what I'm saying is that never forget that whatever really brought you joy in your childhood actually will bring you joy later in life. So now come full circle, I'm 57, now I'm living on a ranch with horses. and chickens. And my dream has always been to live on a ranch, but I allowed society's pressures and family pressures to sort of do a city detour along the way.
That's amazing that you do fulfill the things that you want to because you want them, because you focus on them and you get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyone who's having trouble, especially when we turn middle age, if you're having trouble remembering what you like to do, is sort of just take a moment to close your eyes and think of the thing that brought you the most joy as a child. And if your childhood wasn't happy, then the first time that you felt joy in your life, maybe it was in your early 20s. And try and think of that moment and the feeling that it gave you, and try and remember to reincorporate some of those feelings back into your life. And it'll help you redefine, what you like to do. Because as women, I think as time goes on, I'm 57, but I already felt in my 40s and even late 30s that I was always taking care of other people's needs before my own. And as women, it's especially the case. Our children, we're in charge of everything, the business, the whatever it is, the grocery shopping, the cleaning. And so we forget about the most important person. They say when there's an issue in the airplane, put the oxygen mask first. And as women, we forget about that. We're putting the oxygen mask on everyone else but us. So really try and remember what brings you joy.
Yeah, that's so important, because you can only be the best version of you when you feel fulfilled, when you feel happy, when you have energy, when you're not running on empty, on fumes, when you are topped up in every possible way. That's when you give the most out to everybody else as well. You have more to give.
Exactly. The way I see it is, if we have a cup, a lot of us women will allow most of the cup to be consumed by people other than us. And so it's really important to time to set boundaries with people in our lives so that most of it is us taking care of us so we can take care of other people better as well.
I'm in full agreement with you. I love it. Okay, so let's move forward in your wonderful journey. So what happened next? At what point is there still more in Germany? Did you go somewhere else?
Yeah, so we moved from Germany to Bahrain, and it was such a wonderful change. So what I didn't mention about Germany, I loved going horseback riding. It was a little challenging for us. We actually did do German schools until we moved to Germany, but we didn't quite speak the language as perfectly. So there were some incidences where we felt out of place, and it was a little difficult to adjust. It's quite a difficult language compared to, of course, we speak it perfectly now, but there were some moments of feeling a little bit out of an outsider. But when we moved to Bahrain, it was amazing. It was the first international school. We went to Bahrain school, which had an English, O levels, an A-level system, and then the American system. So Bahrain school was amazing. I mean, they had people from all nationalities. And suddenly we didn't feel like we didn't belong. We were part of, people looked like different things from all over the world. And it was a wonderful atmosphere to be. And so my sister and I really took to a lot of sports. We did the swim team, the tennis team, the track and field team, whatever we could come our hands across. We were quite athletic, and we really enjoyed doing the sports, and we really enjoyed the international flair of the school. And it was such a different atmosphere. One thing about Bahrain that was interesting is that we needed to be chaperoned. So we weren't able to sort of, do things on our own, and we would have a chauffeur drive us to different places. And now, of course, that Bahrain has become the Paris of the Middle East. There's a bridge from Saudi Arabia. So when people want to come drink, they, take their car and drive over to Bahrain. But it was a really interesting and beautiful city. And again, I'll never forget riding Arabian horses in the desert there. There's something about a Middle Eastern sunset. It's blazing, wonderful. There's a very ethereal atmosphere about living in the desert. And now I live on a ranch in the desert, Mojave Desert here in California. So I feel very much at home. So after Bahrain, we moved to Amsterdam, which was a complete culture shock. I mean, from being chaperone, having a very sheltered existence, to suddenly being confronted in a city where we would walk, we would, go out. My parents were pretty strict about a curfew, but of course, we would sneak around and go with friends. And then we saw the red light district, which was so shocking, to see these women, sitting in their little booths. And then if
It's
they
so
were
blatant.
available, the red light was on, it was very weird. And then marijuana was legal and hashish, and it was a very, very different atmosphere. We loved it. My sister Veronica then graduated, and then we moved to Hamburg. So Gina and I moved with my parents to Hamburg, and I finished my high school at the International School of Hamburg, which again, I really love the atmosphere of being in an international school and feeling just like you belong, because everyone's from everyone looks different. And it's everyone sort of was deciding, where do we go off to college? And I wanted to stay close to home. So I chose the American College of Switzerland, and I actually learned a very important lesson from my mom. On our way down, we were submitting my luggage, lots of luggage, because she was taking me to college. And the train station attendant who was taking the luggage and we were paying for the luggage was being so rude. And I was like, what's wrong with this man? And so she said, Martina, sometimes you have somebody it's his only authority in life. So he's going to use it and he's going to be mean to you. And it was one of the biggest lessons that I could learn. And it also means that it's really important to be kind and compassionate to everyone, because you don't know, what their home life is like. So if you have somebody who's sort of being snippy and rude, kill them with kindness. I know you can elicit a smile from them.
That is so lovely, and it's so important, because you do see people reacting very quickly when somebody is snippy with them. And I saw it recently somewhere, and it really did shock me. It shouldn't shock me at this stage, but I thought, you don't know what's going on for people. Cut them a break and be happy that you're not feeling that way.
Exactly.
So what came next then?
Yeah, so Switzerland was, again, unbelievable. It was only about 200 students, a lot of Middle Eastern students, a lot of people from Holland and Germany and Spain, some royal family members. And it was located in the ski resort of Leza. And it was my first sense of freedom. Of course, I lived in the dorm. My roommate was from Hamburg as well. And one of my best friends was Esther from Holland. And it was so wonderful studying there. I actually started working in the library, that's one thing I wanted to just backpedal is one summer before I was graduating, I wanted to humble myself and really, we had a very good life. We were given pocket money. And so one summer I said, I want to just, see what it's like to work and really see what it's like to work hard. So that summer I worked at McDonald's in Hamburg. I was working as a cleaning woman in an office building, an assembly line worker in a chocolate advents calendar factory. And then the fourth thing, which was my favorite, was being a cleaning woman for the toilets in an old people's home near the riding stable that I went. And that was really, it's humbling, number one. But what was so nice is the old people, they were so grateful to see me and to go there and to have their smile. And you know what? Everyone has to go to the bathroom, right? So it's no big deal to fix it, right? You just put on gloves. But the main thing was the meeting with these elderly people, and it was a wonderful experience, and they really enjoyed my visits and having me there. So that was my favorite one of those 4 jobs. So fast forward to Switzerland. Switzerland was great. I mean, it's the center of Europe. It's, one of the only neutral countries. And every weekend we were able to go to different cities, Milan, Paris, Geneva, Montreux. There were a lot of concerts in Montreux or Lausanne. And then we also tried all these different ski resorts like Verbier and Zermatt. You can go summer skiing. Porte du Soleil was one of my favorites because you start in Switzerland, you have lunch in France, and then you come back to Switzerland. And Zermatt is the same thing. You start in Switzerland and then you end up in Italy, and then you come back. So Switzerland is such a beautiful city, you know, and again, it was my affinity to nature and just green. I love the sound of the cowbells. They had a wonderful riding stable at the bottom of the village. And I really, really enjoyed my time there. And then I moved to Miami.
Well, the fresh air in Switzerland is very different to the air in Miami for sure. And Lausanne is one of the most prestigious universities, isn't it? That a lot of businesses go to recruit the graduates from there into their onboarding programs.
Yeah, so Switzerland is known for its great hospitality schools. So Lausanne had also hospitality schools, and now the college that I went to is actually the boarding school, Lausanne American School. So it's still a very international, and they've expanded to different buildings in the town. But yeah, Switzerland is a great place to study hospitality management for sure. Very prestigious.
Yes. And there to Miami is a huge leap, whole different thing. I mean, Miami has a fantastic vibe. Love Miami very much. Tell us about your journey in Miami.
You know, what's interesting is when my sister graduated from Amsterdam, Veronica, and she moved to Los Angeles, I really was all about developing my own identity. And so that's one of the reasons, but also I wanted to stay in Europe. But when I decided to transfer to the United States, I said, well, what is a university that's quite far away from Los Angeles so I can keep sort of building my own identity? Mm-hmm. And so University of Miami was one of them. And it's actually become a very, very good school, very well known for marine biology and agriculture, architecture, and many different things. And the first time I moved to Miami, it was a little bit of a culture shock because everyone spoke Spanish, and I didn't understand the concept of being in America, yet everyone speaks Spanish. So it was a little weird for me to go there. And to me, as kind of a citizen of the world, whenever I moved to a different country, I felt like it was my duty to assimilate and to assimilate to the local culture, try to learn the language. So, but Miami was great as well. I had my first horse there. I owned my first horse. After I graduated, I started my practical training with KPMG and hotel and management consulting. I did my first Master of Science degree in hotel and restaurant management. And so it actually offered a lot and was a great training ground. KPMG is, of course, one of the best accounting firms in the world. My father was an accountant known as the grandfather of accounting. My grandfather was known as the grandfather of accounting in Hong Kong. And so they, after selling their firm, was associated with Deloitte and Touche. So KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, you know, they're part of the most prestigious. So one of my goals was to work for the most prestigious firms in the world, and KPMG was one of them. After Miami, I wanted to move on. So the managing partner at KPMG in Miami said, you know what, Martina, I want you to start working. We're going to, we're going to get you your green card. And I said, you know, I actually want to continue my education and get the Master of Science in Accounting. Because when you look at the hotel industry, it takes a very long time to go from starting out at the bottom, let's say in the front office, and then working your way all the way up the ladder to general manager. So accounting offers a much faster way. So I got a Master of Science at Bentley University in Waltham, Massachusetts. And then I had my internship at KPMG in New York in audit, stayed there for a few years, went to PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then I jumped all the way from the bottom to controller of Ian Schrager Hotels. So it's if you're looking to fast track your career in accounting and want to be a financial controller, a chief financial officer, this would be one of the ways to do it, get a master's of science in accounting.
That is such a brave and wise decision. And to focus in on audit, when you really go into audit in the big businesses of the world, that's your ticket anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so tell us more.
Yeah, so at KPMG, actually, I also did, which really provided the foundation for me becoming an entrepreneur, which was moving to the consulting departments. So at KPMG, I worked in the bankruptcy department, and my mentor was Tom Sandler, who used to be the CFO of Samsonite.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned so much in consulting. It's really all about evaluating businesses, going into different cities. We worked on Northwest, we worked on Kmart, and going in and sort of evaluating the whole market from all aspects. We worked for the debtors as well as the banks, and just, the companies, like, it was sort of an all-encompassing job. And then at Price Waterhouse, I worked under Bjorn Hansen in the hospitality practice. And that was amazing as well, going into different cities and appraising portfolios of hotels and looking at each different components of the marketplace and the feasibility of building new hotels in different marketplaces. So that was really the excellent foundation for ultimately becoming an entrepreneur in my life. And also for jumping to, because a lot of the companies will look to Price Waterhouse or KPMG or Deloitte & Touche to find their next controller, to find their next chief financial officer. So then I was scooped up by Ian Schrager Hotels, at the time Morgan Hotels Group, and became the director of accounting for the Hudson Hotel, the interim controller of the Delano, as well as the controller of the Paramount Hotel. And that was, I love the hotel industry. I guess just from moving around so much, hotels are just a fun industry to be in.
What a wonderful experience you've had. And it's going to be so intriguing for people who are listening in to see this leap that you took eventually along the journey into something entirely different. It's just mind-boggling. But you picked up such rich experience along the way in this journey. It's so commendable. So yeah, I'm excited to learn more. You were based where at this point?
So I was based in New York City.
New York still, okay.
Yeah, New York. So I actually, in the meantime, started a 3D animation business, which I won 2 Emmys and 4 Telly Awards. And then in 2006,
that's fantastic.
decided to start a luxury outdoor furniture business. And it's really, a lot of people think it's very, very easy to start a business. So if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, really consider many different factors, including having enough capital to start and grow a business. It took millions to become one of the top names in the industry. Exhibiting at all the different shows costs $10,000 to $20,000 for each show. Advertising one page was $10,000. So really make sure you have the capital, and if you can, make it an online business and not a retail business. So that business grew into a pretty good worldwide force. We won 9 furniture design awards. We were in many different hotels around the world, including the Four Seasons in Abu Dhabi, in Azerbaijan, as well as the King of Morocco's palace and many different celebrities' homes. And so that business extended to Miami Beach, where I really enjoyed Miami the second time around. Mm-hmm. And then in 2013, moved over to California. And one of the main reasons was because the lead time for the container delivery was 3 weeks shorter than a container ship going through the Panama Canal all the way to Miami. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to evaluate all the different things, including what are your distribution points and where you're getting your goods supplied from. But I really did enjoy that business. But then when I moved to California, I had other ideas eventually.
Ooh, tell us more about the other ideas, or what was it that brought? So you're still in your amazing furniture business, And it was time, it was really about the time that it was taking to, in order for the produce to get to you.
Mhm.
Was there any other reason, or was it all focused on that? I mean, you had a family by now?
Yeah, so I had now my ex-husband and my two children, and my sister Veronica lived here in LA. So for many years, I kind of visited her, and I thought LA was a little pretentious, you know, Hollywood and all that stuff really didn't appeal to me. But one time she moved from Encino to Santa Monica, and we were able to see the Main Street Sunday produce market, and the ocean was there, and it was sort of a different vibe. So I finally was like, okay, we can make the move in 2013, and brought my Porsche 911 over from Miami and started driving. So Miami's really flat. There's no mountains, no topography. It's really flat. So it's not very interesting to drive. But when we arrived in California, it was like, wow, PCH is right along the ocean. You know, it's very romantic, like more romanticized roads in
But
all
it
the
is
movies.
so beautiful to drive. I've driven it many
So
times. I
beautiful.
love
Yeah.
it.
Mulholland and all the canyons, and it was just such a great escape for me. And I find that as a woman who has a lot to take care of, one of my recommendations is to get in your car and to take a drive. You know, have your husband take care of the kids and go.
Yeah.
And it's a really good time to think about what you want out of life. And I was realizing already since 2011 that I wasn't happy in my marriage. And I think ultimately you want to try. I think it's really important to try and make a relationship work, especially if you have children. But at some point, you need to resign yourself to the fact nothing's going to change. This is not the person for me. I'm not happy, and I'm going to say enough is enough. So in 2016, best decision of my life was to say, I'm done. You know, everything's sort of in place. It's a big, big step to say, I'm going to divorce somebody.
Mm.
But in my opinion, the kids were old enough now. They were older. They were in the young teens. And I do believe that it's better to separate rather than them seeing a mom and dad fight.
Yes.
So on a horse in Dubai, in that desert, in the Arabian desert, that's when I remembered who I was. I remembered those feelings that I had as a child on horseback in the forest, in the desert in Bahrain. And I was like, this is who I am. It's not that city person, that detour that I made to New York City, and
Mhm.
you know, not honoring what I like. Like I wanted to be Martina Kwan again. And so on that horseback, I made the decision, you know what, I'm done with this marriage. And obviously it takes a few months to unwind a 17-year relationship,
Mhm.
but the decision had been made. And once you make a decision, you're able to refocus on what you want to do. And what I wanted to do was become a race car driver. And
That is
I
just
had
an
gone through
incredible leap. But going from one form of horsepower to another.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, you know, I had gotten different clues, and this is where your mindset is so important. So sometimes you'll hear from people, oh, you should do this, or you would be good at that. And you say, don't be ridiculous. In my case, somebody before had already set out, I want to make you a champion. And I said, don't be ridiculous. I'm in my late 40s. I'm a mom of two, and I'm a business owner. So what I'm saying here is that it takes some clues to change your mindset from you thinking of yourself in a particular way. I thought of myself as a mother, a business owner, and certainly not a race car driver, to getting enough clues to saying, you know what? Including, I was doing a vision board, I tore out randomly female racer. And I was like, again, I said it's ridiculous, but I'm going to put it on the board. And there you go. Three years later, 3-time champion race car drivers. So it's really about, you can change whatever the narrative is. Again, you're saying, I can't do this, to I can do this.
Mhm.
What you were saying at the very beginning.
Mm. This is just, it's such an incredible and inspirational leap to say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm really going to do it. What was it in particular that drove you that direction? Was it these drives that you were taking up into Mulholland and PCH and all the canyons? Was it the way you felt when you were doing that, or what was it that drove you to make such a transformational shift in your own life?
Well, it was partly that and the sense of freedom that it gave me, but I also looked in 2015 at the beginning for racetracks, clubs that I could go to the racetrack with, and I found the Porsche Owners Club. And so I went at the beginning of 2015 to my first track day, and up here is so beautiful, even more beautiful than Mulholland Drive. It's through mountains and it goes up to the high desert. And again, it was sort of like the problems were falling off. As I was driving up the hill, the problems were sort of going off my shoulder, and I felt the sense of freedom. And so I did a few track days here and there. In 2016, I had 4 business trips to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So I didn't have much time, but that experience and loving to compete, and it was really fun competing against men as well. Like, I'm very competitive and I'm used to working in male dominated industries, so it was I'm very competitive as a person, so I really enjoyed this new challenge and wanting to do this. And it was really, these have been, the past 7 years have been some of the most amazing years of my life. And the lesson here is that even if you think of yourself, if you're 20 and 30 listening to this, and you think of yourself in a certain way, look at me. I changed my life at the age of 50, and you can too. So nothing you do right now as a young woman is set in stone. You can change your story at any time. So don't worry about you thinking you have this path when you have the world as your oyster.
Absolutely right. I absolutely agree with you. And you made this such a huge leap. I love it. But then you took it further. So it wasn't enough to just be an incredible race car driver, have that whole adrenaline rush, the thrill of it, the connection with your car, the relationship that you form and the trust that you have together. You took it a whole step further than it being an incredible driver and champion driver into creating a business out of that as well.
That's right. Yeah. So in the meantime, I was approached to become a professional driver. So again, kind of unheard of at my age. I'm an FIA licensed, international FIA licensed race car driver, and drove professionally in the GT World Challenge with Celine, and have been asked to drive in different things, like with Wayne Taylor Racing or with the 24 Hours of Dubai. So that was a huge honor, and just seeing how I've inspired people of all generations, men and women, but especially women. So what I wanted to do, number one, is start a business called DK Racing School. So my boyfriend, Dwain, is he was my coach, by the way. So what happened after 50 is I found the love of my life, and I can't even describe how happy I am. It almost is going to make me cry.
Oh, that is so
But it's the most amazing feeling when you find somebody that who really understands you and you understand them, and is really your he's my partner in crime. He's the one that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And so he's also a race car driver. He owns Vision Motorsports. He does, work on Porsches. And so we share that in common. And then when I found out that he loved horses too, I was like, wow, it's just this whole package of, we love nature, American open prairie land, so to speak, the desert. So we share so many things. But so DK Racing School is based here at Willow Springs International Raceway. And I've so enjoyed helping hundreds of people, especially women, come through, and several of them are now licensed race car drivers themselves. So that was one business. The second business is Daring to Be Different coaching. And I became so passionate about helping other women in particular, and seeing so many women being unsure of themselves, not knowing what they want to do, especially in middle age, that Daring to Be Different coaching is exactly what it stands for. Dare to be different. Be you and fear nothing. But a lot of women do need that hand holding. And so a couple of years ago, I started doing retreats for women. And it's been my huge pleasure to have these women's retreats, especially my Extreme Confidence Mastermind for Alpha Women, because Alpha women have this particular, and I'm an Alpha woman, have this particular trait where we're so strong at work, but a lot of us had trouble in our personal relationships.
Mhm.
So I now focus on alpha women. And so these retreats, I just had one a couple of weeks ago, are 3-night retreats in Malibu. And it's so wonderful seeing the women transform from cocoons on Thursday night to butterflies on Sunday.
Oh, that is just incredible. You're doing what you've lived. You're helping other women to embrace their freedom, their life, their strength, their alpha component, and to attract into their lives what they want.
That's right.
You're living
That's
the
exactly
dream.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to share, the things that I've learned about being an alpha woman,
Mm.
in how to attract their love of their lives. So I'm helping alpha women attract their loves.
I love that. What tip can you offer our listeners if you were to give them one or two of your top tips? What would you suggest to women that know they're maybe,
or things from the past.
yes.
Well, I'll start with the past. Again, if we have young viewers and even older viewers listening, I really want to encourage everyone to not ignore any red flags. No matter what the relationship, if it's a love interest, if it's a business relationship, if it's a friendship, if you see the red flags, a lot of people, we have friends that become a thorn in our side, and we've had them for so long, it's sort of like, okay, we'll forgive them. But at some point, it's important, remember the cup, is that the people who aren't serving us need to go. And so when we see those red flags, you know what? Bye-bye. We're going to set the boundaries and it'll free up the cup for us to lead a healthy life. A lot of us women also have trouble sort of saying what's bugging us. So if, let's say, a friend is bugging us, we're like, oh, just thinking like the person's bugging me, but we don't say anything. And so my advice is, if you feel any way aggravated, just be honest, bring it up, get it off your chest, right? Just spit out what you mean. Like, as women, we hold too many things in. So just say what you mean. And just by saying it, telling your friend, you know what, it really bothers me when XYZ, I would really appreciate it if XYZ finished. If they don't know, a lot of us women, we expect men and women, our friends, women business partners, to read our mind. Nobody can read minds. So just say it in plain English, right? And the other advice is, so don't ignore the red flags. If you see the red flags, they're red flags. And a lot of women are like, oh, it's a red flag, push it to the side, make excuses. Don't make excuses. The second one is, again, don't allow society or your family to dictate, oh, you should do this. Like my father, you should be an accountant. And I actually followed the advice and it did lead me to where I am today. So I am thankful. But if you feel like, you know what, just think to yourself, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for my parents? Am I doing this for society? Why am I doing this? And if it's not for you, really evaluate what you need to change, because in order to be truly happy, it really has to fulfill you, turn you on, right? And then the other thing is, my big one is, if you believe in yourself at any age, you can do anything at any age if you believe in yourself. The other thing is, what daydreaming, it helped me throughout my life. Dream big. And so when you're daydreaming, sometimes you're afraid to say things out loud because it just sounds like you don't want to show off, or you think it's too big of a goal. Dream big in your mind, be on that stage with 50,000 people applauding you. So you might be shy to say it to your friends because it sounds ridiculous, or who are you? But in your mind, do the exercise. So dream big.
Dream big. That is absolutely right. And so often people will say, yeah, we know those things, but we forget to do those things. We know them, but we forget to do them. So I think these are brilliant pearls of wisdom, so important and transformational for people. So thank you for that, Martina. So what's coming next for you? What are you growing into in your next phase?
Yeah, so I'm continuing with my DK Racing School, precision driving schools and racing schools, which is wonderful. We have one every several months, and I just love it. Next one's April 21st. And my Extreme Confidence Mastermind retreats are, I love them so much. So I'm going to continue having them. The next one's probably after my mom leaves back to Germany. She's visiting, that I'm working on now. And I think it's really important to vocalize our goals. And that's the other thing that women don't do. I'm going to vocalize that I'm going to be helping hundreds, if not thousands, of alpha women find their true love. And that's going to be my life's mission from the next few years. Mhm.
Oh, that is amazing, Martina. I think I need to have you back on again to give us an update on that and to talk us through how you are helping those women and what their journeys are, because that's exciting, that's empowering.
Mhm.
That is truly full of limitless potential, if anything is.
That's right. Limitless Potential. I love the name of your podcast, by the way.
Thank you so much. Martina, that has been an incredible conversation. I would wish it to go on for so much longer because I think that we could talk through so many of these things. But thank you for sharing all of that. I really do appreciate it. And I know our listeners will appreciate it too. There's so many pearls of wisdom in there to be had. And just the inspiration of hearing you and your journey and how you have made these brave choices. And it's never ever too late. I mean, you're young, you're gorgeous, you're fabulous, you're energetic, you're doing your thing. It is never too late to move towards the things that you want in your life. So I think that is so inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing that all with us today.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for being here. And yeah, ladies, there's unlimited potential, right? Limitless potential, just like this podcast indicate. If you believe in yourself, just go for it. Go for it, because we don't have time to waste, right? Let's get it done now.
We
So
don't.
thank you again. It's been such a pleasure being here.
Thank you. And Martina, one last thing. How can people find you?
Oh, right. Yes. Thank you. It's info at Martina, MartinaKwan.com.
Fantastic. So many amazing things. Look, so many people want to go out to California. What better reason to bring yourself out to California than to become a race car driver in your school or to tap into your amazing alpha program and confidence and bring everything into your life that you want. I do wish for our listeners to look you up and book a trip to California and build it around working with you, because there's nothing better right now, I think, that they could do than invest in themselves and their future. And you're going to help them to do that. That's fantastic. Love
Thank
it.
you again. Thank you.
So that was such a wonderful conversation with the very lovely Martina Kwan. It's such a joy to have her here today. I do hope that you guys are going to look up Martina, find her online, connect with her, find out when her next programs are. You will have an amazing time, and it is going to spark so much happiness in your life, and you're going to start attracting everything that you want into your life because of that. So enjoy that with Martina. And thank you all for joining us today. And we look forward to welcoming you back again soon with another wonderful interview with a beautiful, like-minded, happy soul full of limitless potential. We'll see you soon.